Imagine being on a North Sea's oil rig. You're probably already terrified, especially if you watch TikTok. That place makes the North Sea seem like it's the most dangerous place on Earth. Now imagine that not only are you on an oil rig, and not only are you in the North Sea, but there's also a big monster thing that's taken over the oil rig. It's a bad time all around, and also the monster thing might be able to kill all of humanity. It's unclear. None of that matters anyways, because today I'm going to tell you how to survive Still Wakes the Deep. Your first order of business if you want to survive this is probably not to work on an oil rig in the first place. Oil rigs are dangerous places and it's a dangerous job. And that's nowadays. Imagine working on an oil rig in the 70s. The game goes out of its way even to show you how awful it is. The rig sucks and was built for cheap. It takes everything everyone has just to keep the thing running half the time. The company that built the rig is known for being cheap and for cutting corners, and Reddick, the guy who runs the rig, is even worse. In the DLC, they talk about how he has killed multiple people because he usually rushes people to get jobs done. You're taking an already dangerous occupation and then having it be run by a cyberpunk tier incompetent company and then a manager who's just evil. And I don't call him evil lightly. I call him evil because after the giant scary hallucination tentacles have filled the rig, he looks down from his office and tells everyone that this is only a minor setback and they should get back to work. That's insane. So really the easiest way to survive this is not to work for a shady company on an oil rig. Because they're just going to build a cheap oil rig that doesn't work. They cut corners wherever they could in building the rig and it's evident. I think the most obvious time it's shown is when a brand new lifeboat doesn't work. You deploy the lifeboat, there's no damage to it or the area that's being deployed from, and it just can't deploy right because they cheaped out on the system. A lot of the times the problem is there's not enough lifeboats. Like on the Titanic, there weren't enough lifeboats for everyone. The problem usually isn't the lifeboats just don't work. That all being said though, I don't know how big of a difference all of this actually made. Eldritch nightmare tentacles from below the ocean definitely aren't something that even a well-made oil rig can withstand. But working somewhere that has good safety features, working lifeboats, and leadership that won't tell you to ignore the eldritch monstrosities probably will increase your chance of survival. I did some research into actual oil rig disasters for this video, and a lot of times one of the most dangerous things that can happen is a breakdown of chain of command. When everything breaks down and chaos ensues, it's much harder to get people out. When no one knows who's in charge or what's going on, it's harder to get people out safely. It's easy as that. So I can only imagine how much worse it is when you do have a chain of command, but the chain of command is saying, there is no more embossing, say, get back to work. But that's enough to talk about oil rigs and safety regulations. How does the creature even work, and how could people even survive it? At the very end of the game, the main character decides to blow up the oil rig, having realized that if this creature gets out to the mainland, it could be very bad. This thing, the wiki calls it the shape, so I'm just going to go with that from now on. So what even is the shape? What we do know is that it comes from deep underground and lives in an oil well. When the drill breached wherever it was, it sprung up through the oil rig, destroying it and mutating anyone it touched. Those mutated by the shape gain the characteristics of various ocean life and they just generally become big blobs of weird sea creature stuff. A clear inspiration for this thing is, well, the Thing. Just like the Thing from the movie The Thing. If the shape touches you, it seems like you immediately get mutated and assimilated. I overall think the shape is much less dangerous than the Thing though. Because the Thing's biggest thing, the thing about the Thing, is the fact that it can pretend to be a person. It will touch someone, take over their body, and then keep pretending to be that person. It will use subterfuge. So it can theoretically spread unimpeded because it can just keep infecting people and then no one knows what's happening until it's way too late. Compare that to the shape, where you immediately know what's been infected. There's no question. If it's a big blob of tentacles and suckers, it's probably infected. The shape is also much less dangerous than the Thing, because creatures infected by the shape can't infect other creatures. Throughout the entirety of Still Wakes the Deep and its DLC Siren's Rest, there was never a point where an infected creature infects something else. Everyone caught or attacked by one of the creatures ends up just dead. They never get infected, they never change. The only people who get mutated and become monsters are those who directly have contact with the main body of the shape in some way, shape, or form. Either they touched the main body pierced them when it was going through the ship, or they were exposed to oil that had particulates from it. Trotz, Rennick, and Moore are all infected by the shape and become monsters, and you see or hear all three of them attack other people. When you end up finding the bodies of those attacked, either in the main game or in the DLC, None of those people are infected, they're all just dead. So I don't think the people who are infected can spread the infection. I think it only comes from the main body of the shape. And that would make sense, because the main body of the shape is the weird hallucinogenic wavy stuff. The people who are mutated are just turned into big blobs of flesh. That's a little different from what the shape actually looks like. Also, if the infection could be spread by the infected, then in Siren's Rest, the DLC, there would be more than just one monster. When you're going around the wreck in Siren's Rest, you find all sorts of sea life. The North Sea is full of life, as it turns out. And if that life could be infected, it's weird it hasn't, because there's an entire monster just going around the wreckage. Though an interesting thing about the monster in the DLC is that whenever it goes anywhere, it leaves behind a trail of oil, which leads to the other reason why I don't think the shape can spread that far. I think this shape needs oil to survive. It comes from an oil well, and if you go up to any of its tendrils, you'll see it's covered in black veins. Presumably the black stuff in there is oil. The shape and shaped creatures seem to need oil to survive to some extent. It was able to spread quickly through the oil rig because 1, it's right next to the oil well, so it's growing upwards, and 2, an oil rig is full of oil. By the time of Siren's Rest, decades later, the shape still hasn't spread out any further than it already was. And you can make the argument that maybe it was killed or injured by the big explosion at the end of the base game, but that doesn't really explain much because there's still the monster, and there's still an ominous shape glow coming from what's left of the oil well. So clearly the shape is still alive. So maybe it's not spreading because it can't infect stuff easily and it needs oil to survive. Or maybe it's not spreading because it doesn't want to. We don't know much about the shape in general, but it is implied that the shape might have a mind of its own, or at least those infected are part of some hive mind. The reason why I bring this up is because the shape might have a sort of mind of its own, and it might not want to spread. Like I said, by the time of Siren's Rest, the shape is not spread any further from the wreck, which means either it is unable or unwilling to spread. Part of me thinks that all the destruction it caused on the oil rig was more of a defensive thing. Imagine you're just some creature that chills below the surface of the earth. You live in a little cave full of oil, life is good. And then someday a giant drill comes down through the ceiling, destroys part of you, and then pulls the rest of you up through the ocean to the surface. I would be freaked out. The entire game might be less of a monster taking over an oil rig and threatening the earth, and more a lowercase e eldritch god being disrupted by an oil drill and lashing out at those around it. It might not be evil or malevolent, it might just be scared. By the time of Siren's Rest, it's no longer afraid and it's gotten rid of the threat of the oil rig, so it's just hanging out. The siren only attacks the main character when she gets too deep into the oil rig, so I think there's an interpretation of this where the shape is just lashing out. It got hurt by the oil rig and it's scared and confused. It's never been exposed to the surface or the ocean at large. So it destroys the thing that was attacking it, the oil rig, and then it goes back to sleep. Or whatever it was doing, maybe it was playing Halo. The gap between Still Wakes the Deep and Siren's Rest prove that this is a very manageable threat. The first way you can interpret this is that it was very damaged by the exploding rig, so much so that it can't grow and spread easily anymore. Which means big fiery weapons are probably enough to make this thing go away. It's full of oil, so throw fire at it and it will permanently damage it. The other interpretation is this thing can spread, but it doesn't want to, because it just wants to be left alone. People dug into it, it lashed out, and then went back to sleep. Leave it alone. So I think the world as a whole could probably deal with the shape relatively easily. As for the people on the oil rig, they're kinda screwed. Being in the middle of the North Sea on an oil rig where they cheaped out on literally every aspect of it is not conducive to a long and healthy life, I'm afraid. Adding an eldritch monster was just icing on the cake, really. That's all I got. I'll see you next time.